What's up, everybody? This is Butt Monkey here with Jay Nix. We're going to talk to you about the Cursive Strahd module, the Death House. We did this all in one world on Tabletop Simulator. We're really excited about it. There are going to be spoilers, so if you are not a DM or you've never played it,
Don't effing watch it.
proceed with caution.
Proceed
let's
with
get started.
caution. All right, let's do it. All right, so we're going to start out with Umran, just to give you a scale in front of the portcullis of the house. Now, I want to really talk about the hook, Andrew. So tell me about how you actually hook the players into this module.
Yeah, so from the DM's perspective, it's a little difficult to hook right off the bat, but the story goes the players are in the kind of creepy and foggy town of Barovia after the vampire Strahd, and they run into two kind of unassuming children who are in the middle of the town.
Yeah,
who
that
lure
was
the players.
Rose and Thorn, right? If I
Rose and
remember.
Thorn, yep. And they lure the players into the house because there's a monster in the basement, and their baby brother is up in the nursery, and so
Oh,
you
the
know
chills.
your players, being the good people they are, have to go save this poor baby and relinquish that monster. So this leads them to the house, and there are multiple floors as well as a dungeon. So I think we can run through kind of floor by floor just quickly here, but to show some of the detail we put into it. My favorite piece is probably this back room here, the dining room with the little painting that we put above the fireplace.
Yeah,
What
for
about
sure.
you?
I definitely felt like when I was playing through it that the first room we went into with the wolves den or whatever, that
Yeah,
was just so creepy because I kept expecting these wolves to actually be alive and attack
yeah,
me. You know, I heard
yep,
about how this was the most brutal module, or like the module that has the most deaths or whatever for players or NPCs. So I just expected to like right off the gate start getting attacked, and nothing
right.
happened. It's like
Yeah,
built so much tension.
that's the beauty of it. This floor definitely, as you put it, builds tension, and it carries that up into the second floor because there's not actually anything on the first floor for the players to fight or anything like that, or any secrets. Whereas the second floor, again, there's no combat encounters built in, but there are rewards for investigating on this floor. In the
Oh yeah,
back
for sure.
room, the library, another great room. There is a desk which has a key in it that's used later, as well as a secret book behind in the bookshelf that leads to the secret room in the back.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember this room. That was where we
yeah,
got the letter, right? We got
yep.
the
So that's
yeah.
that's the letter from Strahd, where it kind of sets up the rest of the mood going forward of this cult. And the baby brother being a stillborn, and kind of unraveling the story from then on.
Yeah.
It's a really nice touch.
I remember going through these suits of armor and like past them, and
Oh
again,
yeah.
like I'm expecting them to attack me, and I'm literally like, I actually think I think I remember actually smacking one with my saber. I was trying to like hit one to see if it was gonna come to life, and
Yeah,
nothing happened. I
nothing,
was like, what
nothing.
is this? So
And that's kind of the beauty of it. The players get really paranoid as they go up, and then finally on the
totally.
third floor, that all kind of comes to a culmination when the first suit of armor that does come to life attacks. And if your players are already paranoid, it just totally sets them off. And there's a couple encounters up here, but my favorite is back in the bottom here. The nursemaid's room, and then the nursery especially, where there's this swaddle of clothes, and there is no baby. And the nursemaid specter comes out and attacks the players.
God, she
It's
was
a
so
lot of fun.
creepy. She gives me chills every single time. And there was I think there was a broom that came to life up
Yep,
here, and it just
yep,
all of a sudden the house started feeling like it was actually trying to attack us. Like just
yeah,
inanimate objects and ghosts were just coming to life. And
yep,
one thing I do remember being very rewarded by was when we actually figured out that this behind the mirror was a secret passage,
yeah,
the staircase, right?
yep. And that'll lead up to the attic. As you can tell, the third floor and the attic are both kind of dustier, and they both have cobwebs, which is a kind of a big transition from the first two floors. And the attic holds the first locked room, which is right here, and this is the children's room. And
Oh,
this room gives me the creeps, man.
it gives me the creeps too. The when we first came in here, seeing the dollhouse. So the dollhouse down here in the bottom left-hand corner, that's the exact replica of the house. That's what you describe it as. So you can find out a lot of information from that. But as a player, I was fixated on the fact that we're in a children's room that's locked from the outside,
Yeah,
and we finally get in and we see these two shriveled bodies of children, the children that we saw outside, except they were starved to death. And they're
yeah.
just like basically how did you describe it? They were like holding each other or something like that, and their
Hmm.
shriveled bodies were in the center of the room.
Hmm.
God, it creeps me out.
I know, I
I
know,
could not.
I
Whew.
know. It's kind of a
Anyway,
mini climax just getting to the top and realizing there's still a dungeon below you that you need to explore.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of the dungeon, it was so weird because we remembered there being a monster in the dungeon, so we
Yeah,
tried to get to the basement from what Rose and Thorn said, and we never found a way there. So we just kept going up up the stairs.
yep,
And
yep.
then the dollhouse, if I remember right, gave us the information we needed to be able to find the secret staircase, which I think is right over
Yes,
here.
it's right in there, correct. And that goes straight down to the dungeon. Why don't we move there next and we can start talking about that?
Yeah, for sure. I like it.
Okay, so now we're in the basement or the dungeon, the first level of the dungeon. Our players have just descended down the spiral staircase from the secret room to this area. They find kind of a dank, dark, stony dungeon floor, and they start to hear this eerie chanting. They can't make out the words, but it just kind of really sets the tone of this basement, and it gets louder and louder as they progress through.
Yeah, I
You remember
definitely
that?
don't know if you can actually call it a basement. It was totally a dungeon,
It's a
and we
dungeon
like
for sure.
had crypts. I remember that two of our PCs actually were possessed, and that was one of the biggest
Yep.
reasons why we came down the stairs. And we actually figured out how to rid them of their possession, which involves the tombs and the bodies of the children and laying them to
Yeah.
rest and whatnot.
Yep.
But basically this it did just it started to get creepy. Like it felt like a
Yeah.
dungeon crawl all of a sudden.
Yep. And as they move through, there's a couple different rooms. There's some servant quarters off to the left with a well. Not too much for the players to actually find here, but the chanting gets louder and louder as they move down.
And
Oh,
then
do
as
you
we're
remember this
moving,
hallway?
paranoid. Yes, we were paranoia. Like paranoia had set in, and we're moving like really slowly, and so we're all like basically just toppling on top of each other. And then all of a sudden, boom! There's a pitfall trap like right here,
Right there.
where it's
Yeah.
like
I'm
all
glad
of
you
a sudden we
remember.
took just a ton of damage.
Yeah.
And like
So,
yeah,
yeah, the way we actually put this in here, Jordan, there, when you hit, as you showed, the number one and two, the DM can kind of cycle through that trap. It looks just like every brick of stone, but if you click the number two button, it'll change to the pitfall, and the players
yeah,
aren't able to detect it. It's really nice because a lot of times in other things, your players are able to kind of tell something looks off, and so this is a
yeah.
really nice way to have the players themselves not see this trap coming. I love
Especially
that.
since like one of the downfalls of tabletop is fog of war is very challenging, but I would
Correct.
say this actually kind of makes up for that because you can disguise things as different objects. You
Yep.
know, we've done that a lot actually in running these campaigns. So
Ooh,
this is a neat touch.
why don't you show them my favorite room on this floor? The
Oh yeah, Strahd.
yes,
Yeah.
Strahd. So this is amazing. I love this area. There's some wooden statues, one of Strahd and then one of his wolf, and he's holding this glowing orb. And when the players reach out and touch the orb, shadows just come from the walls and start attacking them. It's really fun. Can be really deadly, actually.
It was a really hard encounter, and the fact that
Yes.
we didn't die is like amazing to me. I feel like
Yep.
this was the first encounter where it really felt like we were even as experienced like players in D&D. I felt like we totally could have just been wiped out
Oh,
right
for
here
sure,
in
for
this
sure. I
room.
think
Yeah.
this is one of the areas that's talked a lot about on the forums of ways to cut back because in this room and then the next room over in the bedroom, there's more encounters and more fighting that can be pretty deadly to the players. So
Yeah. Now
it's something to look into.
we had only glanced at this, and it was so
Yes,
creepy with the way that it was described that we went straight down these stairs. Like we just went to the
right,
lowest level. We were like,
right,
we're not messing with that. Let's go find a monster. Like
right.
so.
And Yeah, and that brings you down to the basement, the second level of the basement or the dungeon.
Yeah, so we were walking down the basement stairs, and I remember
Yeah.
the chant was actually discernible now. And
Yes.
all of a sudden, what was the chant? It was like something like, "He is
Yes.
ancient. He is
He
the
is the
land.
land.
He is
He is
ancient.
ancient.
He
He is
is
the
the land."
land.
And it was like all of a sudden, I was like, "What the heck does this
That's
mean?
so
What are we
creepy.
doing? Why are we
Yes.
here? Who's ancient?"
Yes.
And then I thought the monster was actually something that was being chanted about, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
So we crossed through this room that had a bunch of like creepy material components, like shriveled hands and like
Yep.
just a whole
Yep.
bunch of crap. And then we looked through this portcullis, right? And it's a
Yeah.
closed gate, like a closed, gate or whatever.
Yep.
And we look through and we see this altar, which has like stained blood and shackles above it.
Yes.
Just really gruesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, when the players get up and if somebody stands up near that altar, then that's when the chanting changes.
that was
Do you-
me. I stood
Yeah.
near the altar, and
Yeah.
all of
Do
a
you remember
sudden,
what it says?
as soon as I stood near the altar, it was like, "One must die.
Yes.
One must
must
die."
die.
And like, so you had this echo on too, so it sounded like
Yeah,
there's like
there you go,
14
voice
people in the room.
modulator.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and then the very back of the room. I love the detail back here because this is kind of the garbage pit where the monster actually comes from. If the players don't sacrifice somebody, which, let's be honest, most of the time they don't sacrifice one
Yeah,
of their
nobody's
own.
gonna sacrifice somebody in their campaign.
Right.
Like,
So most of the time, this creature comes out, and it's a shambling mound, and it just comes rolling out and tries to engulf the players. And the players, the first time I ran it, they just ran scared the opposite direction.
oh yeah, but we didn't get away though because
True.
there was somebody actually that got engulfed, so we were trying to save
Yeah.
that player.
Yeah.
We were trying to run away, and like the worst part about it was, had we sacrificed someone, less people would have died.
I know.
Less
You don't know it in
PCs.
the time though.
No, completely.
And then if the players do manage to get away from this beast, which is basically getting up to the next level above this in the dungeon, the house kind of turns against you. The
Yeah.
doorways start turning into blades that you've got to jump through, and the furnaces they turn into smoke that's poisonous.
Yeah,
It's
like a
pretty
fog
brutal.
that was poisonous. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, like, we're sitting there and we're all like super low on health points, and we're trying to get through the house. And because it's like decrepit and old, we're like, okay, well, let's just go through the wall instead of going
Yeah.
through that.
Oh yeah.
And lo and behold, oh, guess what? The death house has rats in the walls
Yep.
that attack you. So it's like it didn't help us at all. Then we had a
No.
combat encounter, and
No.
and like it is incredibly challenging and incredibly fun to run back through the house the way
For
you
sure.
came. But this time the whole house is against you.
Yes, that's the best part is the house feels like it is actively attacking you and the players do everything they can to get out. So when you finally make it out of the house, that's the success.
Yeah, like it's successful just to get out of the house, and then
Right.
finally, like what hooked you in with the fog and Barovia and stuff is no longer, right? Like you can
Right.
actually get away
Right.
from the house and get away from the city. So,
Yeah.
but overall, I mean, a super fun module. Buttmanji,
sure.
I gotta congratulate you. You have worked so hard on this map, and it is
Yeah.
amazing. Playing through it, I don't know. I think it really demonstrates why tabletop is such a good tool for DMing
Yeah.
and for playing
For
D&D.
sure. Well, it's not done yet because there's also a bunch of DM tools that you and I have thrown together that we can show everybody. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's go through that.
All right, so let's go through the DM's tools that we've included here. These will be behind a quote-unquote DM screen in the zone that is hidden from the players. First and foremost is the one world that we've set up. I think that really makes the whole thing because this is where all of the maps are stored. If you've never used one world before, you should check out some of the videos on it. This isn't going to be a comprehensive tutorial of one world itself, but more just what we've included for the module itself. So it starts with the menu, which lays out the entire house. And then floor by floor, there are buttons for each floor to go through. When you click on the floor, you can see how it's laid out with different buttons. Each one is for a different room, and they are labeled in the same way that the module has them laid out, so you can reference the module to see which floor or which room. You would start, obviously, in room 1, and this is the entrance with the portcullis. and where we kind of start the module and what we showed you at the beginning. And then it really builds from there. If you, for instance, go to the second room, the foyer, it's got a nice staircase and all of that. And it really builds off itself. And that's the beauty of One World. And at the end, if your players have explored everything, we always include the entire floor build out.
And you can
So you can keep.
certainly start with this, correct?
Correct. If you really wanted to, you could, and you could try to put up your own zones. It's a little bit of a hassle, which is why we've done this. But this is definitely possible to do it your own way as well. So that's kind of the gist of the One World. We've got every single floor laid out and all the rooms kind of one by one for you to go through. So play around with that and get a feel for that. This is just a simple roller that's out there on the workshops for DMs to roll with. This right here, this book is actually a bag full of all of the monsters that are on each of the floors. So we've laid them all out kind of in order, so you can pull
Oh,
them
the
out as you
nurse
go.
maiden.
She's a fun one. And so that's got all the monsters that you could ever need as a DM. Next to it is the DM's map and layout of the house. So this will have all of the floors laid out, the numberings, the secret doors, the traps, all of that for the DM's eyes only to look through and reference as you're going. It's a really quick way. I also like to have it up on my second monitor, but not everybody has the luxury of that. Moving on to the other side of the table, we've got the player's map. If you find use for this, great. I haven't actually used it for the players, but it's good to have if you need to reference.
Well, I think if you decided to run the Death House in something like Roll20, you could
Sure.
actually use this map as
This
the
is what you would
primary map.
use.
Yeah,
Correct.
you could easily import this and have hidden
Correct.
zones and just work through each of the areas.
It is. I think it is nice to see looking at this map and looking at kind of what we've created. You could see how much detail we're able to put into it and how a difference 3D really makes when you're looking at it.
Yeah, I think this is actually a really good contrast between like what is tabletop and what is most of the other tools that we've ever used. Tabletop really allows this space to come to life.
Yeah.
Like moving a token on this just doesn't feel the same.
It's yeah. Here's a couple of quality of life things we've added. You've got a picture of Rose and Thorn here. Those are the two children. Sometimes I like to show the people because I'm not always the best at describing. There's also that token if you ever need to bring them out as ghosts or whatnot. This one I found online actually. Somebody had created a very nice letter that is the replica of what Strahd has written up on the second floor in the secret room, and you can hand this to your players and they can themselves read it. If you hover over it and hit the Alt button, it'll zoom in on the image itself, so it's easier for the players to read. But it's fun. I think we had a dramatic reading of it. Is that right, Jordan?
Yeah, I totally did that.
That's good. It's good RP. Next, we've got. I like this. I just added this mostly because sometimes I'm a dummy and I forget names. Like, shoot, what was that? The baby's name upstairs?
Walter.
Walter. Yes, and you can have it written down so you don't forget. We've got all of the items and treasure that the players find as they go through. There's scrolls and things like that. We've got the key. If you're the kind of DM who likes to give your players an object so they have it sitting in front of you, this is for you. Otherwise, they can just write it on their sheets or whatever you'd like to do. But we provide it in case that's what you'd like. And then we've got a little potion that we actually created ourselves. We scripted that you can play around with and kind of explore. The module itself we found is actually free online through Wizard's website. It's just the Death House, obviously not the entire Curse of Strahd module, but that way you can download this and play through it even if you don't have the full book itself. So we provide the link there. And then next to it, these are the last two pieces we added. And this is something you can choose to use or not. It's for when the house is kind of turning against you at the very end. I'll copy and paste here and bring up to the furnaces and all of the fireplaces because they start to fill with smoke. So you can start to place these throughout the house, and then your players can see visually what they're running through. And when all the doors start turning into spinning blades, I like to put these down and show them what they're jumping through. Just adds that kind of extra element. Obviously, an optional thing that the DM can put later on.
Yeah, you definitely had lighting as well. Like the whole house
Oh,
turned
for
like the
sure,
shade of red, if I remember
for
right, and it
sure. So
looked
if
like it
you
was blood, you know. And
Yes, you can
yeah,
play around also with making it a little darker to make it creepy. There are different tones you can add.
stop at the red
Um,
one. Oh, the orange one's cool
yeah,
too.
so you can kind of play around with it with the colors to really change and make the module, unique for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely think that all the tools that are included in tabletop really aid you in fleshing this out and making it feel real. And it was a really good experience for us. I cannot wait to run it for some strangers and actually
Yeah,
stream that. I'm really looking forward to that,
yeah,
and that's yet to come. So I think that pretty much wraps up the Death House, does it not?
yeah, it does.
All right. Well, any last thoughts there, Butt Monkey?
Well, we're gonna put it on the workshops, so you can download it for free once you have Tabletop Simulator. So look for it there under Tier 1.5 Death House, and yeah, play around with it and give us your feedback. We love to hear. We're always willing to make little changes and things like that. And if you've got things that you could add to it, we'd love to hear it. And we're also open to ideas for like extra projects and things like this that people want to see.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Butt Monkey, for walking us through this awesome map that you've done. You've done an
for
amazing
sure.
job. Really appreciate it. And everybody, stay up to date and keep track of our channel. Like, subscribe, do all the stuff that everybody else asks you to do. Only do it for us. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.